everybody, it's Chris Eads and our lives Wootini with another Gay Gamer video podcast for you. I know the last couple episodes were kind of short. This one will not be short. I actually have quite a bit to talk about, so we're just going to jump in and hopefully I don't ramble for too long, and I'll try to keep it under 15 minutes. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I went to the movies and I saw a couple movies. The first movie that I saw was Never Let Go, which is a horror movie about a mother and her two children who live in this isolated cabin in the woods somewhere, and they have to stay in the house, and they can only, if they leave the house, they have to stay tied to it with a rope because the house is magic and will protect them from the evil in the woods. And they can only go as far as their rope will stretch. And so, of course, they're running out of food, and, you know, it's rough. And then one of the boys starts to question, is this true? Is there really an evil out there? Only mom sees it. Maybe mom's crazy. I don't know. And I have to say, I wanted to like it more than I did. The main performances are great. Halle Berry and the two kids, fantastic. They're pretty much the whole movie. There's a few other people in it, but they're the movie 99% of the time. So they're fantastic, and there are actually some good creepy moments here and there. The problem is that it tries to have its cake and eat it too, because it's like, is mom crazy? Is there really evil? No. Yes. Maybe. We're not sure. Oh my goodness. And it just keeps waffling, and it just gets so weird, and like by the end of the movie it does appear to land on one side of that fence, but because it waffled so much and tried to keep things vague and mysterious and we're not sure, we're being artsy, we're not going to tell you specifically, you know, like it just didn't. When it lands on that side of the fence, I'm like, did it? I think it did. It doesn't really land with any kind of like effectiveness. So I feel like this could have been a great movie with a few more passes at the script. But if it's streaming and you want to check it out, go ahead. You might be a little disappointed, but it's not a complete waste of time. The other movie that I saw was The Wild Robot, which is an animated movie about a robot that ends up on an island full of animals, and she has to raise a baby goose. And it is adorable. It is beautiful. It is heartfelt. It is wonderful, and I loved it. It was delightful. I know it sounds very like saccharine and sweet, and it is, and I did cry a bunch of times. It's very sweet, but there's this nice undercurrent. Like the fox is really sarcastic, and there's also a lot of jokes about death and dying, and they joke about it, and it's weird for a kids movie, I thought, but that helps like cut the treacle. And it's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. It is CGI, of course, they're all CGI now, but they did it specifically to look like this impressionistic painterly style, so that even though it's CG, it still looks hand painted in a way. And it's gorgeous, and there's some stunning imagery in it. And I also appreciate it because it made it look kind of Miyazaki-like, the nature stuff, especially since the design of the Wild Robot, it kind of reminded me of the robots in Castle in the Sky, a little bit. And it's just wonderful. And the cast is terrific. It's celebrity voices, but nobody sounds like themselves, which is really helpful. They do voices, which is what I like. And the only thing that I would complain about would be the ending, which I can't really say too much about. I don't want to spoil the ending, obviously. It is, I looked it up, and it is similar to the way the book ended, but I kind of wish they tweaked it, because I would have preferred a different ending. I understand the ending and why this is the way it had to be, but I didn't like it, and it made me cry. So, boo for that. But otherwise, it's amazing, and you should go see it. Also, while not a theatrical release, this was a streaming premiere If you are a fan of Rosemary's Baby and you are tempted at all to check out Apartment 7A, the prequel to Rosemary's Baby that it recently premiered on Paramount Plus, do not. Just go watch Rosemary's Baby again. Because while this is a prequel, it basically plays out like a remake. It's literally the same beat for beat story. And it's ridiculous. Diane Wiest is fantastic, but that's not reason enough to sit through this. Just watch Rosemary's Baby again. Because also, when you get to the end, like, we actually put in Rosemary's Baby to watch the Terry D'Onofrio scenes in Rosemary Baby, and, well, it's just one scene. And it does not sync with this movie. Like, it doesn't actually make sense. Like, ugh. So I don't. It's a waste of time. As for games, moving on to games, Sony had a State of Play, which I actually did watch, not live. I never watched them live, as you know. I'll watch it later so I can fast forward the games I don't care about. I did watch most of it, though. Though I was surprised at how many remakes there are. Like, they're remaking Horizon Zero Dawn for the PS5, and I'm like, why? It just came out? I mean, I know technically it's 7 years old, but in game years, that's not a long time. And they're like redoing cinematics. They like reshot new motion capture and performances. And I'm like, why? Like, we literally just played this. Like, work on the next game. Don't work on a remake of the first game. Like, come on. Like, I will be very surprised to see how that sells. Because I'm like, who's going to want to play that again? We just played it. I mean, there was something they said where, like, if you have the PS4 version of the game, you can download the PS5 version for, like, $10. And I'm like, even for $10, I don't care enough. Because I don't want to play it. I just played it. You know, I want to play another one. Not a prequel. I don't want to play a remake of the first one. I want to play a third one. Please, thank you. Like, they also announced there's a remake of Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain, which, fair. I remember playing that on my PlayStation 1 back in the day and enjoying it. I quite liked it. I also played Legacy of Kain, which I also enjoyed. This was a very different game, but I enjoyed it. It was a 3D platformer adventure game kind of thing. It was like an adventure RPG, as I recall. I liked it. That's a long time ago. So I'm like, oh, I would be interested in playing this because I won't remember it from all those many years ago. The problem is that it's a Spire, so it's really just like a cleaned up version of the game, and I have no confidence that it's actually going to be good as a port. Like, I don't know. Like, they're not redoing, it's not a remaster, it's just a re-release with slightly cleaned up graphics, I think. So that's disappointing. Like, they were showing the side-by-sides of the graphic comparisons, and I'm like, okay, so it's still the same blocky polygons. You didn't improve the models at all. You just sort of cleaned it up and smoothed out the jagged bits. Meh. So I'm not very enthusiastic about that. Now, on the other hand, the one I am enthusiastic about is the remake of Lunar 1 and 2. That is going to be good. Lunar Remastered, that one I'm into. That I'm definitely into. I played those games before, and I played them again, and I will play them again. It is so good. It is a wonderful turn-based RPG, and I love my turn-based RPGs. And I actually still have my PlayStation Collector's Editions of both games, which came with like art books and soundtracks and a little medallion and stuff. And I have played them before. Played them again on the PlayStation, and I will probably play them again now. I did go into the back of the closet and dig out my old Sega CD stuff, and I found the Lunar Sega CD, but I couldn't find Lunar Eternal Blue on Sega CD, but I know I played it. I just couldn't find it. Maybe I didn't dig deep enough into the box. So yeah, like, I don't like to replay games, but here I will probably play this for a third time because it's been decades in between. That's when you remake a game. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. Oh, and finally, they also had a trailer that started out, and I was like, ooh, this looks like Ghost of Tsushima. And then I was like, ooh, is it a sequel? And then I went, and then for whatever reason, because they had done all these remake trailers, I was like, oh no, don't tell me they're remaking Ghost of Tsushima with like prettier graphics for the PS5 or something. I mean, come on. But then it turned out it was a sequel. And I was like, yay, Ghost of Yotei, which I am super excited to play. That is going to be a launch day purchase, because I loved Ghost of Tsushima, and I will definitely play another one of these. I would love to meet a new person and explore a new area in Japan. I am all in. And of course, I have seen online that the incels in their parents' basements are upset that we are not getting a sequel of Jin's adventure. We are getting a new character, and God help them, it's a woman. How very dare they? So they'd probably be less upset if it was a man, but they're upset because it's a woman. Whatever. So I'm excited, and a lot of people are excited, just not the incels in their basements. And then as for playing games, I did play, of course, Animal Crossing and Disney Dreamlight Valley, but I did play something else. Although I did play a bunch of Disney Dreamlight Valley because I got to the end of Tiana's quest, friendship quest, and I finally did her final friendship quest, which actually wasn't as bad as some of them were. Some of them are a lot of like hunting and gathering and crafting and stuff. This was just like, oh, make an arch. And I was like, okay, that's easy. I just had to spend a couple of days gathering flowers, and took a few days, and then I'm done. Okay, I'm done. And then I got a really nice new outfit out of it. I like new boy clothes, because they don't have a lot of boy clothes on sale in the store. But I did play something else. I said I need to play something else, so I actually started to open Shenmue 3, but as it was launching and loading, I was like, okay, wait, where did I leave off? And I went, oh, I left off at that fight a few weeks ago that I failed, and so I'm going to have to double back and do, I'm like, oh, I have to double back and do some fighting and sparring and training to level up my Kung Fu before I try it again. And I was just suddenly like, oh, I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. So I literally quit while it was still loading. I hadn't even gotten to the title screen, and I quit out of the game. I was like, no, we're not doing this. I refuse. Like, I was not in the mood to grind levels. Like, no. So I found myself, I don't know why, but I suddenly felt compelled to download Mafia, the definitive edition, which has been sitting in my library for years. It was a PlayStation Plus freebie like ages ago. And I said, let me download that, and I'll explore an open world city set in the 30s, and I'll do mafia stuff and steal things and kill people, and maybe that'll like be fun. And it is fun. But it is not an open world game, technically. It's weird. So basically, you play as this character who gets wrapped up with the mafia, becomes part of the mafia, and like he's narrating the framing sequence. You start off like, it's all in the past. So you start out at the end of the story where he says, this is how I got involved in the mafia, and I think he wants out. And it's like flashbacks. But it's all very linear and very like specific, and it's like here's this mission, and it's like cutscene, gameplay, ending, cutscene. Next mission. Like, you're not exploring the city finding missions. The mission, it's very story based and very linear, which is fine. It's still entertaining. I just would have preferred a little bit of exploration while you're in the missions and stuff, because everything's very like, do it in this amount of time, or you're being shot at, or it's a fight scene. Like, there's no like exploration, and I do like a little exploration in my games. It helps me to feel like I'm part of the world. But they do have what's called Free Ride, which is a separate game that you get to in the main menu. You can either continue the story or you can play Free Ride, where you are free to explore the city completely open world style. You get in a car, you drive around, and do as you please. And it's weird that it's a whole separate mode. And I did do it one day. I just spent like a little while just like driving around, and I went to some locations that looked like they might have, they were like unique, like a lookout point or a specific building, like a school and stuff. And I would find little collectibles. The problem is, those are not the same collectibles that are in the main story game. Because I knew I missed a bunch of collectibles. And I knew there was a collectible, because I wasn't sure where you're supposed to be finding these, because the story missions are so like boom, boom, do, 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 do. There's no exploration. So I'm like, how do you find the collectibles? Because I didn't see any. And I'm like, oh, there's one in the restaurant on this table. But in free play mode, when I went to the restaurant and looked on the table, there was nothing there. So I'm not replaying missions to get collectibles. That's just not happening. But the thing with the free play mode is that it's super boring because there's nothing to do. Like there's apparently like missions and stuff that you can do in free play mode, but I didn't stumble across any. So it was sort of like empty and void, and you're just driving around, and it looks pretty. The game itself, the story part is good. Like I like the story, the performances are good, the story is interesting, and the gameplay has been fine, except for a couple of hiccups, because there was one where you had to go and steal a race car and drive it to this mechanic who would tamper with it, and then you had to drive it back to the racetrack before anyone found out. So it was like a race against time. And that wasn't so bad, but then that wasn't the end of the mission. The end of the mission was you also had to drive in that race. Not in the sabotage car, that was for the competition to make sure he didn't win. But you had to replace the driver who got beat up, and that race, oh my god, I lost track of how many times I tried to do it. Because it's the 30s, the cars don't control real well, and I just kept crashing into walls and other cars and spinning out, and it was just embarrassing. And I was so bad at it. I was able to get to like 4th place or something, and I eventually was like, this is ridiculous, and I think I can't continue the game until I beat this race. And I'm like, this is so frustrating. And I was like, am I done with this game already? But I switched the difficulty down to easy just to do this, and that was enough to help get me to 2nd place, and then on my next try, I did actually win it. And then I went back to normal. I didn't get to the frustration point where I needed to change the difficulty for a later mission where you had to fight people with your hands or a block of wood. Like the shooting is okay, the shooting is fine, but the actual punching, the melee combat is not great. The punching is okay, but then every so often it tells you to press triangle, which is like a dodge, except it's sort of random. I'm like, do you hold triangle? Do you tap it? When do you press it? Like, what's the window of opportunity here? Because 9 times out of 10, I don't dodge. It doesn't work. And then I get my ass kicked. So that's sort of frustrating. It's like I understand it's a remaster of the older Mafia game, so it looks super pretty and it's really nice. And they did tweak some of the gameplay, but they probably could have tweaked it just a little bit more to make it a little more fun. But so far I'm enjoying it. And because it's so linear, I'm not getting bogged down in like side quests and exploring the city and doing all of that. So I'll probably finish it relatively quickly. So I don't think I would go into Mafia 2 after this. I'd probably break it up with something else. I should really go back and play some more Legend of Zelda, what I borrowed off my friend, but I haven't played that in ages, sorry. But come back next episode and find out what I'm playing now. See you then, bye!